Okay, the recording's in progress. And we're at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. Today is the 15th of February. And we're going to have a wonderful presentation by the landscape architects at Urban Arena, Keith Mittenmeyer and Sarah Allen. And they're going to give us a nice presentation. So we're recording it so that other people can enjoy it. Go ahead and take it away, guys.
Thank you, Kathleen. So can you guys, I hit to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we've prepared a couple of graphics. I'm going to start with some of the site furnishings and materials that are within the courtyards, and then I'll move on to the plantings that are within the courtyard and around the perimeter of the site. Maybe it might be easiest if I just go through everything as a first pass, and then we'll come back and we could hit the different, then I'll go back to the start and maybe we could go over questions at that time. Does that sound fine? Where I'll just kind of cover everything at once and come back for questions.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
That does sound good. Keith, let me just ask you just to spend 30 seconds at the beginning before we dive into the details of these furnishings and finishes, to just describe, if you will, sort of the vision, your vision as a landscape architect of how this space is supposed to work and what it's really trying to accomplish through your design.
Sure. So one of the main area of concern, or the main highlight, was the courtyard area that's facing 6th Avenue. And we're trying to create a space where people could gather, a space that is visible from the street, but separate from the street, if that makes sense. Now it is higher than the adjacent streetscape, so it'd be nice for those that are inside because you could see what's going on, but it's not all about the cars going by. But it's also for the general public that is passing by. They see that there's something of interest. But also when you're inside the space, it also feels somewhat separate from the outside world, if that makes sense. That you're kind of in an area that feels special. It is an area. Our understanding is this is where you have church events. Maybe something after service, or there's events on the weekends, and so it is a nice open courtyard for that. But then there's also little nooks around the perimeter that if you want to kind of have a quiet conversation, or if it is the middle of the afternoon and there's maybe nothing special going on, but you have a place that feels comfortable to sit down, have a snack, have your cup of coffee. There also are some overheads where you can get some shade in that space. And then the specialty on the paving there is this labyrinth that is a replica of what's at the Chartres Cathedral over in France. So you could also have kind of special meditative moments walking through the labyrinth that's etched in the concrete of the courtyard. As we go north and get adjacent to the new tower, there's a little space outside of the office. This is intended to be sort of like, whether it's outdoor conference space or just a spill out space from the office.
That's called the Guild Room, Keith, just for reference.
Okay. Right now we have a bench, but if there's that's part of this how it's been amenitized, but there can it could always be amenitized further if you want to put a couple more comfortable seats, or make something more of the space. But it's intended as spill out space from the guild room. This is kind of a forecourt. There's all the entries from the new building, spill out from the residential tower and from the offices. We're also making up grade. This is a bit of a ramp. There's elevation change between towers and the cathedral. So we're picking up some of the grade along this space, along this right here, and then there is additional ramping as you come up in between the tower and the north side of the cathedral. Then there's an additional spill out space right here. The intent of that's got a couple of tables. That too is just and umbrellas, just spill out space from the adjacent office or that retail space that's available up at the north. And then, there's the entrance onto Fifth Avenue at that point there. The planter areas, are intended to provide color, soften the edges, give it a nice sort of a comfortable feel. And with the trees and the palm trees to help bring down the scale of the large buildings that surround it.
That's great. Thank you.
So I think I'll start down at the main courtyard. There is kind of the larger stairwell that comes off, or a little bit of a wider entry that comes off of 6th Avenue. And there's also a ramp that comes up, ADA accessible ramp that comes up to make that grade as well. As you come through that entry, we do have a fence that goes around the courtyard, kind of follows the edge of the wall. And then there's that's this number 7. You can see it's all coded for when we send this over to you. And if you want to kind of refer back to it, that's this kind of a nice entry gate that has this nice, the theme of the archways that's throughout the architecture of the project, the existing cathedral, and it's even been used in some of the architecture up at the top of the new tower. And then, you kind of come through this entry and then it widens out into this nice courtyard space. As I had said previously, there's the nice open space in the center, but then on the sides, there's the little nooks that have been notched into the planting areas. Maybe I could zoom in a little bit. And you can see in those, we've got tables, we've got some benches. There is an overhead that's above this larger rectangular nook there, and then the same overhead in this rectangular nook. And those are shown. Well, these are the tables that have been specified, the tables and chairs. These are the benches that are spaced throughout the site. And this is similar to what the overhead is going to be. This was the best we can find. This is the same manufacturer, the same look. This is just a square. Ours would be rectangular, and most of our materials are in a bronze color. The bronze is matching what's used in the architecture, and that type of coloring is used throughout. This is close. These are what the bench color is true. The trash receptacle color is true to what's going to be out there. The table and chair, this was what we could find off the website, but it's going to be in a color that matches the trash receptacle and the bench. And then this is a little bit darker bronze, but it's still in that same sort of a kind of a warm gray to the bronze color. And then the paving in the center is concrete, but it's got a kind of an etched finish to the top. And then there are a couple areas that have a darker, charcoal type color enhanced in them. That's this strip right here inside the nooks have that darker color. And the labyrinth, how that gets etched into it, it is the natural gray to start, but then they actually sandblast out. There's a template that gets put down, and then they could sandblast a deeper cut into the concrete, and within that deeper cut, they will put this darker color stain so that labyrinth pattern pops from the concrete. It's similar to what's shown here. And then again, as we move north, up in the courtyard, that contains one of the benches and then in this seating area here, we've got the tables, chairs, a couple umbrellas. The umbrellas are in a taupe color, but it's intended to match the colors that are in the new tower and to correspond well with the metal colors of the trash receptacles and other trash receptacle benches and the overheads. The decorative pebble that we show here, there's only a couple little strips. There's a couple of air spaces in between some of these planters and the adjacent buildings. That's there because we don't want to build the planter right up against the glazing and the glass. That's to help with maintenance long term, and it simplifies waterproofing. But we fill that void with this decorative cobble. And I'll move on to the planting. This first sheet is about the planting that's within the courtyard spaces. Again, I guess I'll start over at the main courtyard. In here too, we've tried to number the different types of planting. I guess the big picture on this, we tried to get a lot of flowering plants or plants that have color within them. Along at the north and most of the perimeter, we're using a lot of the iceberg rose for color. We've got the Dianella, which is like a kind of a broad-leafed grassy type plant that has a nice variegated color. A Lomandra, which is a grass, the Raphiolepis umbellata minor. This picture doesn't show it in flower, but that also flowers in white. And then the trees that are around this courtyard are they're king palms or Arcanto phoenix. And so that will help bring down the scale of the new tower and also provide some nice shade and just sort of a nice feel to that courtyard. They surround it. It's in the little pop outs that go around the perimeter of the courtyard. And then another one that, a little further up on the walkway there. Let me see. Yeah, okay, that covers most of that area. Planter 4. Some of these are, like this is number 4, but the shrub planting is similar. It just may have a different tree within it. Well, 4 doesn't have the tree, but it has this same planting idea with the Dianella, the Raphiolepis, and the Lomandra. As we come up this corridor along in planter area number 5, that just has a buxus, which is intended. That is just going to be a low hedge to kind of help enclose the space and kind of make it feel, you're a little bit higher than the adjacent space here, but it just kind of is a nice sort of gives it a formal touch. And then there's some highlights of the Nepeta. That is a low blue flowering plant that's around towards the top edge here where the planting area widens out. And then in the opposite one, coming out of there, again, we've got the iceberg rose as our taller and main plant within it. And then as a ground cover or foreground, we've got this light blue blooming Nepeta that's along the foreground. As we come up to the next courtyard, the larger planters that have the tree within those is the Magnolia grandiflora. I mean, that's the St. Mary, which is a little bigger than the species. That looks like an image of the straight species that gets a lot bigger. But those are an evergreen tree. They have these nice flowers sometimes during the year. And those two help, nice shade, nice feeling to the courtyard, and some nice flowers during certain seasons of the year. There's a couple of smaller planters towards the center. Within those, the shrub is the Dianella once again, but we have the Tivocina, it's a princess flower. And during the summertime, it gets these nice blue flowers. Hopefully these are going in right at the perfect time where it's sort of the start of spring. But they have this nice leaf to them as well. It's got sort of a fuzzy texture. And then later on in the summer, it blooms a nice blue color. And it's a much larger shrub that would be up and above the Dianella. And then these planters along the edge, again, back to the Lomandra and the Dianella. It doesn't have the tree and the two that are up against the building. And these plants are in groupings, but it's kind of the same theme that's throughout the planters in that area, so far as the shrub plantings. I did miss that we have these agaves that are randomly placed within, it's mostly kind of larger fields of the Lomandra, the grass, and then we have this kind of a blue-green agave that provides sort of a textural pop within those planter areas, and to provide a little variety within those planters. Along the streetscape, the perimeter of the project, I'll start on 5th. That has a very urban feel, similar to what's out there. This is sort of, I don't know if it's mandated, but it's closely structured by the city. The street trees within those planters on 5th are jacaranda. And those match kind of the main species that's on that street. I don't think it's jacaranda everywhere, but that is the main species that's on the street. Hopefully, I think most people are familiar with that tree in San Diego that flowers purple during a certain time of the year. And that jacaranda runs all the way down 5th into downtown. Up on Olive Street, the tree species there is Acacia leptophylla, and that is a tree species. It's a little bit smaller than the jacaranda, and it produces the yellow flowers during a certain time of the year. It's almost evergreen, a little more. It loses some of the leaves this time of year, but not all of them. Jacaranda does go through a deciduous time, however. And that's it. Those trees are street trees, very urban within tree grades. There is no planting below at the base of those. But as we get to 6th Avenue, we have a little more space for tree planting and shrub planting. And that's the side facing the park, and it does get a much more park-like feel to it. Along 6th Avenue itself, many of the queen palms, that's this palm right here, some of them are already the existing ones, the very tall ones that were able to remain even during construction. Those remain. The turf that just gets turf below them, that's the theme that's all along 6th, so far as when it faces the street. That idea stays for the whole length of 6th Avenue. And then there are matching palms on the inside of the sidewalk. However, once you get to the inside of the sidewalk, we get back to a shrub slash tall grasses planting. At the corner, there is a kind of a low monument sign that abuts that cut in the corner of the building. But in front of that, we have this is called Ophiopogon. It's just a low ground cover. It's not necessarily a grass, but it's just a nice low ground cover. It gets a little bit of a blue flower every once in a while. But that's because of the sign. We can't block the lettering on that. The lettering for the signage itself starts only at about 12 inches above grade. But then as you move back from that, but it's a nice clean green. Up against the wall, we have this plant here. It's a Zamia. It's just a nice kind of another clean plant, a cool texture. That's up against the face of the building. That's just the image of the turf that's up against this. Oh, actually, there is a small, the reason we have this turf that's in this general area here, there is a little bit of a uh, dog relief area. And that's because when residents of the tower, there will be quite a few dog owners, and there's quite a few dog owners. If, during the daytime, I'm sure most will be taking theirs for a walk, but if it's the middle of the night, you don't feel safe or you feel more comfortable staying, you don't, in the middle of the night, you're not going to want to go walking far anyways. There's a small pet relief area right outside this door, but it is screened a little bit from the walkway by the larger shrub planting, but that's why we have that turf shown right there. The podocarpus, there are these utilities for the building right there. We have a little bit of this podocarpus here that becomes a tall hedge to screen those from pedestrians as you're walking by. And then in the planters up against the building, again, we have some of the same types of plant materials that we used within the courtyard, where we've got, but here we are bringing in another type of a grass. This our tall grass. It's Lomandra Platinum Beauty, just to get a little variety in the color. That has more of a variegated light color to it, and then to contrast with the full green color of the Lomandra Breeze. The Raphiolepis that we're using to kind of soften the fronts. Some of these planter walls get a little tall because the parking garage itself pops up a little bit out of the garage as you start coming downhill. And then so it's a background of the Raphiolepis with a foreground of the Lomandra, and then our queen palms along the street. Finish off the theme, the tree planting theme that goes all along 6th. And I hope I kind of jumped around a bit, but hopefully I covered everything. So happy to take some questions. I could start. I'll just go back to the.
Yeah, no, just stick with the planning for a second. Let me just ask you about the palm trees there. I see, 2 call outs for number 6 and 1 for number 5 on 6th Avenue. I'm talking about the Kate Sessions palm trees, where we are replacing several trees that had already died and been removed, and a couple of others that had to be relocated for the project. So along 6th Avenue, how many of, and I think everybody on this group's probably familiar with that original, spacing and planting plan of the double palm trees, originally planted by Kate Sessions back in the day. So how many of those trees are going to be in place when we're done here, either from trees that have stayed or ones that we've replaced or restored?
So if I remember correctly from our plan, you can see there's a slightly different symbol.
Yes.
I believe these are the existing to remain.
Okay.
So I'd have to double check, but from this plan, I believe that, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets. So I believe there should be 10.
Right. I think there's only one right there where, because of the transformers, we couldn't do the inside one,
Okay,
where
so
that 6 is. Yeah.
So 9.
Right. Okay.
And the
Great.
replacement ones are going to be, they're 20-foot palms to
Right.
start.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee?
I have a couple of questions. One is related to, I'm familiar with a number of these plants, but not all of them. And it looks to me like you have really been mindful of the water requirement, but I'm wondering if you could address that, the drought tolerance of these. And then the other question I have relates to the paving. Should I ask that one now?
I'll go ahead and answer the question about the plant materials. All of our plant materials, except for the turf and one other plant, this Ophiopogon, are considered medium to low water use. But there's nothing we could do about the turf. That is mandatory to have that, and I think it feels nice. I don't have a problem with that in areas where it is, well used recreational, or in this case, it is historical too. And then the reason this is a little bit higher water use, but it's only a very small special area at this entry sign itself. So it's and that's just because that was the right plant for the right space that gets a little bit of shade from the afternoon on, and that plant works well in that type of condition. The other thing when it comes to drought, everything on this site is drip irrigated. So that's very, that's as efficient as we can get on distributing the water everywhere, except again with the turf, we have to use the spray in the turf areas.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. The other question I had, it looked like that the paving is going to be almost totally concrete. And I'm wondering, so it's not going to be water permeable much at all, it appears to me. Is that the case?
That's correct. But water permeable, were you hoping to have some areas where the water could permeate into the groundwater?
Yeah.
That's true, but this is all above structure anyways. So there's a parking garage that's underneath all this space.
Okay.
That's why we have the raised planters as well.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question, because I'm having a little trouble envisioning it, because you haven't done what do you architect people call the
3D
elevation, the elevations, and so that I can have I'm trying to imagine it, and it's a little hard because it's been a while since I've been by there, but thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
Is there a time frame for when this is going to all be installed?
Oh
yeah.
You may
We're
know
on
better.
it.
You
We're
know
doing
better.
it.
You may know better than I do, but I mean, this area is now coming in pretty hot and heavy. I mean, the planter walls are going up, so Sarah's going to be going out and tagging the trees at the nurseries this Friday, so it's any day now. The next couple weeks.
It's happening. This area, along with the TEI space itself, will be, we're gearing towards a certificate of occupancy in late March and actually move in, date in mid-April. So yeah, this is happening right now.
Yeah.
Hi, all.
Hey,
Hi,
Chris.
Chris. Chris, we're recording the session so you can catch up on anything that got missed, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris is our head of our landscape committee. And so she's got a vested interest in all this.
Oh, great. Hi, Chris.
We use the shovels. Hi, good to see you. I'm excited to see what you have for us.
Great. Well, Keith just finished his presentation, so we'll have you review it in a little bit.
Okay.
Keith, I had one question, and Tom, I know, had addressed it with you maybe in the walkthrough, but there is the planter that's closest to the existing building that runs against our ramp. It feels like really tight and everything over there. And
Right.
I understand the why of it and everything. And in the planting plan, it looks like you're planning on putting a big palm tree smack dab in the middle of that architecture there. And I'm a little concerned about that. And wondered if you might consider, like how big are those supposed to get, how tall? Because we have a 3-story colonnade right there, which has
Right.
architecture of the arches and all of that. So
It gets tall. I mean, going in, it might be 10 foot, 12.
okay.
Top of fronds, maybe a little bit more than that, but yeah, those get to be a pretty tall tree.
But that's a palm as opposed to the fluffier magnolia, correct?
Correct.
So do you share Kathleen's concern about it being obstructive as far as views either to or from the arcade?
I'm not sure. I think we put that as sort of, it's at the terminus of this view as you look down. But I could see, it's all about what do we want to see? What don't we want to see? I do agree that arcade is kind of nice. We can move. These trees don't have to be where they're at, but we can't get, at this point, I don't think we could get rid of trees. The city has, the city is pretty much a stickler that, they want to see this amount of trees in this courtyard. There was a certain amount.
I wouldn't ask to maybe remove the tree as much as I would say, is that the right tree for us in that spot? And that's the only question I guess I have. Is it something that we want, like what's in the Queen's Courtyard, which are shorter trunks, or, something that doesn't get 20 feet tall or 15 feet tall and cover up the arches that they spend all the time and money making again for that section? So I guess that's really my only concern in the whole thing that I've seen.
I could see maybe it gets moved to the side, does that open up more? Where it's more in line, closer in line with what this one is here?
Are these in planter boxes? I'm sorry, I'm really late, but are these in planter boxes above
Yes.
the garage area?
Yes,
So how deep are these boxes?
about 3 feet.
So how long will it be before those trees break through to the garages?
Oh,
Hopefully never.
yeah, they shouldn't ever be able to do that.
Okay, because I live in a condo and we have that problem right now.
Well, hopefully, if the planters are constructed correctly,
Uh-huh,
that shouldn't be a problem.
okay.
Yeah, into the garage.
Yes, yeah, there's an underground garage and the planter boxes are leaking into that.
Oh my.
Well,
I don't think we'll-
these are constructed, there's waterproofing inside this planter.
Uh-huh,
Well, there's water, this planter kind of is standalone where there's the the top of the parking garage, there's
Right.
waterproofing,
yeah,
and there's waterproofing on top of that.
yeah,
Then they pour concrete inside this planter. Then they put
Mhm.
another layer of waterproofing and sealing inside that planter as well.
okay,
It's pretty bulletproof.
all right.
Yeah. Kathleen, let's the next time I'm down there, which is probably tomorrow, let's go out and walk the courtyard. It's still obviously very busy with construction activity. The tree that you're concerned about is, I understand that. I definitely do. I think it's
I
important.
get
though-
why we're putting it there. It definitely
it's
works
on
on
the
that
axis.
axis.
It's on the axis, and if you move it further south, you really start. I'm already worried about that entrance to the cathedral, where the number 4 is, feeling kind of crowded, and if you move that tree further south, then it feels even more pinched rather than, a welcoming way to get into the cathedral. So yeah, let's walk it when I'm down there in the next couple of days. And again, like he said, when the tree gets delivered, even we can maybe fudge it one way or the other a bit. Although the axial relationship is pretty important.
Yeah.
Agree.
And as far as
Yeah.
the size is concerned, you also don't want one tree out of all the others, that's out of balance with
The
the
special
other palms
tree,
that are,
yeah.
exactly.
Or
exactly.
maybe we make it a very special tree, an olive tree or something that's very, very special or something like that. I don't know.
This is Darian.
Well, if it becomes more of a true tree versus a palm,
That's gonna be worse, yeah.
yeah, I think that just becomes more thick at the base. I mean, with time, these, it's a palm, they open up at the base.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, if we could it might just be about placement more than anything else, like just tweaking the placement.
Could I ask it? This
Sure.
is Darian. I apologize, I'm a little late, but what kind of trees are all these going to be in and around that courtyard?
We just did a whole conversation about that and we taped it so that you can watch it at your convenience. And the ones we're talking about right now are the palm trees that he's pointing at on his screen.
Around the
Down here.
labyrinth area?
Yes.
Yeah, in big planters.
And
Wow.
I'll also be distributing, well, excuse me, Kathleen.
Mhm.
Well, I have your email and Tom's. I'll send this presentation to you guys and you could distribute from there.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and then we will distribute it to the whole committee because some people aren't here.
Sure.
So thanks, that would be great.
That would
Sure.
be great, thank you.
It's the 11 by 17 is what they're intended to print out at.
No, they're easy to read, that's
Our-
much easier.
Or have it on your screen and zoom in as much as you want.
That sounds great. Well, this has been a really good conversation, Keith. I really appreciate all that you're doing and how you're communicating about it as well. Does anybody else have any questions for Keith or Tom? Oh, I think Jim Greer wants to talk. Hold on, Jim, you have to unmute one of your devices. Just any one of the devices unmute. He said, never mind. Okay.
Okay.
I
Well,
read Liz lips, sorry.
if you have more questions for me, just let me know.
Yeah, we'll shoot you an email if anybody has anything. Jim, if you think of anything you want to ask, we can always shoot them an email and get results that way too.
Sure. Or I guess I would ask if maybe several questions come in, if they could just be gathered as one email.
Of
We'll try and
course.
hit them all at once.
Yeah, we'll send it in as a group thing and.
Yeah, great.
and Definitely do that.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Keith, for your presentation.
You're very
Much
welcome.
appreciated.
Thank you. We're looking forward to seeing it done.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Same
Thanks,
here, thank
Kathleen.
you.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
being here, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for your time.
All right. I think he has to stop sharing.
Okay.
There we go. Here, view options. There we go. We're
Hey,
back.
there we go. Hey, everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording and we can have the rest of our business meeting if you'd like.
Okay, so
There you go.
we're kind of out of order.